All right, so we are now recording. All right, so my guest tonight is Mark Symms, and Mark Symms has a pretty interesting story, which I myself only know a tiny fragment of, but what little I know is very interesting. So Mark Symms is an attorney. He's a practicing attorney. He's been an attorney for quite a while, as far as I know, and he is also a narrator and voiceover artist, and that is how I know him. He is currently narrating a short book of mine titled International Law, and that's obviously and presumably the fact that he decided to do this is related to the fact that he's an attorney. Now, am I right in making that assumption, Mark? Was your willingness to narrate this book related to the fact that you are a lawyer?
Yes, the title alone is what it would attracted me to to audition for this. Although once I got into it, there was not a whole lot of international law in it.
Okay, all right. You're being honest. You're being honest. Kind of. All right. No, tell me about that. Do tell. Speak. I don't
No,
disagree with you. I mean, you
oh,
may well be right.
no, it was wonderful to go through the logic that you drew out about how international laws could or could not be applied to today's conditions,
Uh huh.
and what if they were, what they would entail, and
Right.
what exactly a law is.
Right.
So
Right.
that was fascinating for me.
Okay. Look, I'll be honest. Yeah, I for a second I didn't quite understand what you were saying, but yes, no, there is in fact no law in it. I don't think I cite a specific statute. It's completely a priori. Um, and So I don't. Yeah, I guess I was. I mean, it does concern the philosophy of law. It doesn't concern this or that treaty. Now I was wondering, and you can be totally honest. Although when people say that, it usually means you cannot be honest. But whatever. Well, you can be honest because what am I going to do? But now considered as a treatise or whatever on the philosophy of law, not on law, but on the philosophy of law. What were your feelings about it?
I agree with it.
Oh, you do really?
Yes,
Wow,
yes.
golly.
Uh-huh. It was laid out logically. I followed it.
Oh, good.
Uh, so no, I agree with your premise and your whatever. What is it? The outcome
The
was
conclusion.
logical. Thank you. Yes, conclusion.
Well, that means a lot, given that you're a practicing attorney. I mean, so okay, so because I made some pretty strong claims in there, and I mean, I said international law is a theoretical possibility. That was the first claim I made, and then I said, at present, even though there are things that are referred to as international laws, they aren't really laws in the sense in which private citizens are subject to laws. And then I said, but there could be laws, international laws, but would they be desirable? And I said no. And I think that last point might ring some bells. This kind of world government. This is a little bit before this whole new world order kind of paranoia became kind of fashionable. But I did say it. I don't know which parts did rang bells and for you, and which parts did not so much.
The your underlying, I guess, proposition of what a law really is that it. And help me out here. It was about assurances
That's right.
and the protection of rights.
Correct. That's right.
And if it couldn't do both of those, then
That's
it
right.
really isn't a law, more of an agreement, I guess, especially on the international scene,
Right.
where it's more of an agreement between countries, or we do have treaties
Right.
that rise to the level of our laws, but doesn't really affect the other countries aren't held as accountable as a citizen would be.
No, that's right. I mean, because let's say China says hey, look, I don't really care for this treaty we signed with Panama. I mean, who's going to enforce it? Other countries can kind of put sort of subtle pressures on them, and they might not want to expend their political capital. But that's not comparable to the situation I'm in. If I say hey, sheriff, I think I'm going to go kill that guy. I don't really care for him. That's a different thing. It would seem to me, right?
All right, I'm going to go invade this guy's home, and I'm going to just stay there.
Right. Exactly.
What are you going to do about it?
Right. Now, what kind of law do you practice?
I'm in a small town, so
Okay.
in a small town, you pretty much do everything. A lot of what
Oh,
I would
wow.
call consumer law. I do a
Oh.
lot of criminal work.
Oh,
I
wow.
do, I do
Interesting.
obviously civil litigation. We're in Central Texas, so there's a lot of the big oil boom. Of course, it's kind of dwindled off a little bit now, but I do a lot of oil and gas law as well.
Wow, that's quite a menu you have there. Quite a portfolio. Can I ask you before I ask you about criminal law, which because I don't really know anything about the law. I mean, I've written books about it, but I don't know anything about it. But I don't know anything about it. But what is consumer law?
What I would consider consumer law would be
Yeah.
what an individual would come to you for: divorce, wills, probate, uh,
So that's sort of civil
criminal
law,
law.
kind of.
Yeah, well, even corporations get into civil litigation.
Okay.
But when I say consumer law, I'm really talking about what an individual or a family would need for a lawyer for,
Okay.
not on the corporate scale, or
Okay.
yeah, insurance kind of defense kind of thing.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And now, of the various branches of law that you practice, which one do you find the most kind of compelling or interesting?
Hmm. Criminal law is it's easy, because
Wow.
at least it is. I find it easy.
Please
Let's
explain.
please explain.
Yes. Yes.
Um, it's very statute driven.
Okay.
There is obviously there is case law that helps define those statutes, but the cases that are brought to bear or before the court, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for the defendants. Yes, there are prosecutors that over prosecute. At least in our area, we do have that. But there was a crime committed. It may not rise to the level of what they want to get out of it,
Right.
but that's where it usually gets pled down to something that, well, this is really what he did. This is really where the punishment should be. Very few go to trial, and it's mostly a negotiating with the prosecution. Now, I am working on a couple of cases that are just flat out wrong, in my opinion.
You mean the wrong guy was arrested as indicted?
Yeah, or he was really just a scapegoat. They couldn't find anybody else to pin it on, so they stuck it on him.
Now, was he involved in the crime and he's just overpaying for it, or was he just not involved? He was just in the next
I
apartment.
I'm not sure there was a crime.
Wow.
It involves a child and an injury, and I don't think they're going to be able to prove that it wasn't accidental.
If you don't mind me asking, how old was the child?
3.
Oh, so that does raise serious kind of credibility issues. I mean, you don't really know. I mean, the kid could say anything. He could be coached. He could.
Exactly.
Right. Wow. I mean, so I guess just a little. What I think a lot of people don't know about the law, and I have been on trial. It was not a good experience. But is that okay? So some is that okay? A lot of people, most, tell me if I'm wrong, but most people who are arrested probably did do something. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it was a violation of some statute, right? Like they had a joint on them or something. Is that right?
Generally, yes.
Okay, so there's that kind of thing, but then there's the situation, and I don't know how common it is. It did happen to me. I did get off. I was bankrupted, but I had to fight like hell. But there's the case where the guy simply did not do the crime. It's not that he was like as less involved than the people say. I mean, occasionally a guy who's just stone innocent is arrested, right? I don't know how that
Oh,
works.
absolutely. You are correct. Yes, and I have had one or two of those. It was
And
just
when
the wrong guy.
and when that happens, you don't. It's interesting, one or two. You don't plead it out. Is that right? I mean,
No,
that's
no, no. You really just need to build your case, present it to the prosecutor. They were both dismissed at that. Those
oh,
are
okay.
that I had. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Geez. Wow. This is really interesting. And now, but most of the people who are who you represent or who are arrested. We don't have to worry about your particular clientele, but are they arrested for victimless crimes? Is it like driving without a license plate or having a joint on them, or what sorts of things are people likely to be arrested for?
In our area,
Yeah.
a lot of drug conviction, a lot of drug crimes,
Okay.
and family violence.
Wow. Wow. This is really interesting to me. I hope this is actually more interesting than I anticipated. Now, with regard to when you say drug crime, right? Because that's um, a little bit ambiguous, right? So technically, like some college student who has a half a Xanax on him, and with an expired prescription, he's that's a drug crime. But then there's also the Pablo Escobar guy. That's a different kind of drug crime. Now, when you say drug crime, what kind of drug criminal do you have in mind?
Both.
Okay.
Speaking of college kid, I had a college kid this morning.
Wow.
He got
Jesus.
caught with less than a gram of cocaine, and but he got a really good deal from the prosecutor, so we took that. Yes, and I also have had criminals that, because we're
Right.
here in
So the
South
Mexican.
Texas. We do
Right.
get cartel members up,
Jesus.
infiltrating and up here. So that's um,
So
we've
there's some
had,
real. Mhm.
yeah, one of my clients was caught with 400 pounds of marijuana.
By Jove. Didn't you plead that one out to 36 time served?
No,
I know.
no, the once we got through with the state case, which he was convicted on, the feds came and got him.
Oh, so that was just, not a lot you can do if you're caught with, 400 pounds on you. Um,
Right.
what? Now, this college kid, this is a practical question. Like, was he driving? Because how the hell do you? Because it's not like the
Yes.
police. Okay, and was he intoxicated when he was driving? Because
No, it was a valid traffic violation, and he consented to the search of his car.
okay, so without violating confidentiality. So, like, did he forget to put on his turn signal or something, or was it something minor?
Yeah, I think actually I don't know. I don't remember the exact fact. We were
Okay.
dealing with just a plea today.
Now, what was the
Uh,
mistake? Should he have not consented to that search, or was it going to happen anyway?
yeah, no, he should not have consented to the search of the car
Jesus, why do people do that?
because they don't know that they have the right not to. Now, uh, yes, if the police officers can see what's in the car, then if they see
Right.
something, then they can go. But if
Okay, and he didn't do
if
anything nutty. He wasn't like, "Hey, officer, you're a fat pig."
no, no, he asked him. It was a simple question. Are there any drugs or weapons in the car? He admitted to it, and they said, "Can we
Jesus.
search it?" He said, "Yes."
So it sounds like sort of like a true, sort of a kind-hearted, kind of innocent guy almost. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm reading him wrong. Well, anyway, I don't want to make you. That's quite extraordinary. And what, as a, if do you mind if we continue to talk about criminal law? I'm not going to ask you
No, go
specific.
right ahead.
This is really interesting to me because because there are all these TV shows about about criminal law, but I don't think anybody, and I include myself in this, I don't think anybody really knows too much about it, unless they're actually in the trenches like you. And what are your feelings about the criminal justice system? Our criminal justice system, is it too punitive? Is it not punitive enough? Is it good? How is it good? How's it bad? How would you fix it? How would you leave it alone? Just tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly as an insider.
Okay, at the state level,
Okay.
we don't at the state level, which is where I'm at. I am admitted to the federal districts here in Texas, but I don't get much practice there.
Uh,
At the state level, we deal with a lot of what I guess not white collar crime. So a lot of it is the bulk of the defendants are lower income, um, and I
okay.
don't and I don't want to say that they're being picked on. It's just that's where the crime is. They and they don't have a lot of money. They get a lot of, so they're forced to either accept a court appointed lawyer, which is not a
Jesus.
bad thing, but they don't get the court appointed. I'm on the court appointed list, and I also take retained cases.
Okay.
My retained cases, I do uh, try to prioritize when I'm in the courtroom. I try to get them in and out as quickly as I can because they're paying me. Um, the court appointed cases. I'm working really hard on one right now, and the child abuse one. I'm appointed on that. I don't get paid near what I would on a retained case,
Right.
so it's a money issue. Our jail here in town or in the county often gets full,
Wow.
so the for the misdemeanor cases, the lower level crimes, they are taking, they're just letting these guys go, time served with less than a week of jail time because they don't have a place to put them,
Right.
uh, and they don't want to. If we push them out to other counties, then we're paying exorbitant amount of prices to keep them housed,
Wow.
with, versus in county. So probation is a big deal for these defendants because it's a cash cow for the county because the probationers are paying $120 a month for all the fines and the fees and the supervision fees that they will be paying throughout the course of their probation. And sometimes it sets them up to fail because they can't afford that.
Yeah, I got to think. I taught at a large. I mean, as I told you, I eventually, you know, beat the case. But the thing is that I taught at a large school in the South, university, and I had all these. It was not a great school. It was, Division 4, and there were just tons and tons of criminal justice majors who I was teaching. And after I had to deal with the criminal justice system, I got the very very distinct feeling that they were sort of manufacturing crime. I mean, that they were looking for ways to kind of keep these probation officers. I'm going to be blunt. Some of these people had IQs of around 75. That they were just looking for ways to kind of keep them employed. And it was very, very, very sneaky. Like there was just this sort of interminable, I mean, my lawyer was bad, but he was trying to get me to agree to do anger management and then do drug counseling, even though there was nothing in my system. And there was just there seemed to be all of this business that they kind of wanted me to uh, give these probation officers. And is that true, or am I just being kind of a nut? I mean, are they kind of manufacturing, or are they arresting people for non-crimes just to keep these probation officers employed?
That might be a little extreme.
Okay, it might be a little extreme. I'm off. I'm off. I'm off. I'm totally off. Um,
But
yes.
but they do. There are if you get placed on probation, there are probably 3 or 4 classes you will be required to take. You'll have to pay for every you know urinalysis that they require you to do.
Right.
You'll have to
Jesus.
pay for a monthly supervision fee. You'll have to pay for your court costs. You will have to pay for your attorney. Um, so
Wow.
so you get a court-appointed attorney, but you will end up paying for it. So
Holy. Now, here's so what ends up happening to a lot of these guys? They simply, don't have the $100 or whatever, and they end up going to jail.
they do get behind on their fees a lot. Now, the
Jesus.
judges we work with, they I want to say they really, I guess, loathe is the word for it,
Uh-huh.
putting a person back into jail simply because they cannot pay.
Okay. All right.
They will just extend the probation, try to get them whatever help they need to find a job, to either if they need treatment, they'll put them in treatment, but they don't want to put them back in jail just because they can't pay.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you, I think, a slightly more difficult question, which is, okay, so, there are people there are different kinds of people who get caught up in the criminal justice system. Now, some people in jails are real criminals. I mean, real criminals. I mean, some of them are real thugs, and sometimes those people go to jail for violent crimes. But sometimes the people who commit violent crimes go to jail for little crimes. I knew a guy who, I mean, arch criminal. He was sort of a buddy of mine, not really, but and I mean, he was dangerous, but he ended up going to jail for driving around he actually did not have a driver's license, and he was driving around idiotically, and he went to jail for that. Now I'm wondering, what's the breakdown? Like, are the people who end up actually going to jail for these sort of victimless crimes, these little petty crimes, are they also criminals, or are they just kind of non-criminals who just ran into some bad luck? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I would say no. It's more of the if they're how do I put this? Let's say we have a defendant who is accused of assault with on a family member,
Okay.
assault with family violence. Um, he also, most of the time, will have a drug-related charge in his history,
Okay.
or an alcohol-related DW, 1 or 2 DWIs,
Oh.
or some petty theft.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Okay. That is kind of interesting. Now, would you go so far as to say that the very purpose of a lot of these? Okay. So, like, look, if let's say somebody has a joint on him, that's not the worst crime in the world. I mean, I'm talking about ethically, not legally. That's not the worst thing in the world. But as you kind of indicated, people who end up getting caught up in the criminal justice system because of these little crimes, they often are doing things that really are bad. Now, is the very purpose of these sort of laws that ensnare people, is the very purpose of those laws to get these criminals, but to get them on charges that actually do stick and that are easily proved? Is that the very purpose of a lot of these drug laws, do you think?
Now you're getting to the philosophy of the legislature, are you not?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. Yeah.
But in my opinion, I can give you
Yes.
that.
Sure. Please.
Um, is it just to? Why don't you rephrase that? What do you?
Yeah. Okay. So, like, let's suppose it turned out that okay, so most of the people who are driving around with cocaine in their car or pot in their car, or even most of the people who are driving without a license or without a license plate or without a valid registration sticker. Now, most of those people, they're not, lawyers or doctors, right? They're kind of screw ups, to put it bluntly, right?
Made some bad choices, yes.
Yeah, they made some bad choices, right? I mean, and so even though not renewing your registration is not a bad thing, uh, it that little indiscretion does correlate with you know possible real criminal activity. So, like, let's say the legislator knew that. Suppose, okay, here's a hypothetical to bring out my meaning. So suppose it turned out that 98% of people who failed to renew their license plate stickers were actually brain surgeons. Would the legislature have gone to such great lengths to criminalize not renewing your registration sticker? Or
I,
you see what I'm saying?
I do, I do.
Okay.
So, are these petty crimes really trying to nab one,
The
the
real
folk,
criminals who you
the
have.
real criminals?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that one would correlate with the other. Whether you're picking up these small petty crimes to try to nab the big guys.
Uh-huh.
I've only run into one or two instances where they've actually turned the smaller defendants into a CI.
Okay.
Most of the time that doesn't happen because it's prohibited by our probation rules.
Okay.
Um, now,
Hmm.
I'm trying to. No, I mean a lot of. Let me give you an example.
Sure.
I have another client who I really, I, this one of the few that I actually believe. He tells me a story that is hard to. To me, it seems hard to be made up.
Okay.
But this is the gist of it. He is he called a street kid. That's what he calls himself.
Okay.
I'm from the streets. Or that's his phrase.
All right.
And he is being charged with felony in possession of a firearm,
Hmm.
theft of a firearm,
Okay.
organized crime, and smuggling of a firearm.
Wow.
This is the facts. Let me give you the facts of the case, at least from his point of view. He was at his house. A friend of his, who is he, childhood friend of his, who he's grown up with, is he called him a crackhead. I don't know. There's a lot of crack out here, a lot of meth, and a lot of cocaine. But and he knows that he's still on it.
Right.
Comes to see him, shows him this Beretta pistol. It was a Beretta, and says, "Do you want to buy this?" My client, first bad choice was even talking to the man
Right.
because he's not supposed to be around other known criminals. Talks to him and says, "I'm not touching this thing. Just I don't want to buy it. I don't want anything to do with it." All he says, "Well, I'll just look at it. Can you give me $60 for it?" I know you don't have. He says, "I know you didn't buy this. I know you stole this. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But you can come inside, and maybe
Right.
my dad will want it."
Okay.
Second bad decision.
Right.
So he goes inside. They go inside. The man puts the gun down on a table. Nobody touches it. Now, my client says dad bought it, $60, ended up selling it to one other person, and
Jesus.
and then that person sold it to a third person. But the third person was smart enough to get a bill of sale, so
He's off the hook. Okay.
more or less there was
Yeah.
no. Yeah, look, I don't know if it was stolen or not. So now they're going back to my client because dad rolled on my client and said, "No, I didn't have anything to do with it. Sonny Boy did it all."
Wow. Boy, that's
Yeah.
wow.
So
Golly.
now my client's charged felony in possession, theft, smuggling, and organized crime with a firearm. And he said, "I never even touched the weapon." I I just facilitated. Of course, he made some bad choices
He
by
did,
even interacting with this
right?
gentleman. Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, it is possible that technically he's guilty, right? Like, because he did, the guy, I mean, like, according to some like RICO law or something, I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely. They will.
it's a raw deal, but
It's a raw deal. He and and this happened. I'm gonna give you something else.
yeah,
He just wants to. They want to. Well, I'm not going to say that. There is a solution, and he is willing to take it and plead guilty to everything so he can just get it over with. And I hear that a lot. Sometimes I know that I can, if we just take this to trial, I can get you, I can get a not guilty plea because the facts just don't add up. And you've got a good case. And they don't want to do it. They just want it over with.
that is so damn interesting because okay, because I had to hire a lawyer, right? I mean, this is a criminal charge, um, and I fought it so hard. And I asked my lawyer, I said, like, and he was like, God, because I was very, very assiduous, right? And everybody was floored. The prosecutor was floored at how hard I was fighting this, and my lawyer said, yeah, I mean, he said, most of my clients, this is a defense attorney, a real criminal defense attorney. He said, most of my clients will they will not fight. And I was like, well, what about the innocent ones? And he's like, no, they just sort of sheepishly kind of take what's coming. They don't fight. I mean, you're the only client I've had, or one of the few who's actually really fought. And he said he said that his clients would just kind of accept it, like that there was this kind of resignation, even if they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And I
He's right.
just, what is that about? I don't understand.
Well, I would ask you that question. What is that about? I mean, how I can only imagine how stressful the whole situation was for you.
Well, I was white hot. Well, no, I wasn't. I went nuts, man. I mean, I actually, what finally got me off the hook, this is going to sound crazy. I sacked my lawyer and started just pelleting the prosecutor directly with emails and evidence and all this stuff. And he kind of freaked out. And then he finally dropped it. It was really weird. He said, "Oh, if you keep on emailing, I'm going to charge you with something, something, something." But then he finally let it go. And but the thing is, I actually, I really was not guilty. And well, I was sort of not guilty, but that's another thing. Okay, but here's the other thing, but the thing is that I was, I mean, I was not guilty in any moral sense. Okay, and I don't know what the technicalities are. I don't really care. But the thing is that I was not going to plead out. I was not going to do anything. I was not going to admit to shit, right? And so I fought it, right? But the thing is, this was really a case where I don't think people who are, I think if you're falsely accused, you go bananas. That's so I don't know if I'm the right guy to ask, but why do
Mhm.
they accept it? Is there some kind of unconscious guilt on their part, or do they have low self-esteem,
I
or what's going on?
that's I don't know. I mean, I had another client that I just resolved her case. She was accused of burglary, and assault.
Uh huh.
She did neither. Um,
Wow.
it was her ex boyfriend's girlfriend who
Ex-boyfriend's.
made yeah
Okay.
right
All right. Yeah, I got
who
it.
made the accusation.
Oh.
Right. And there's a whole backstory that goes on with this, but she was innocent. I eventually got everything dismissed.
Oh, great.
However, she was willing to plead to a misdemeanor. It was started out as a felony. She was willing to plead just to get it over with so she could get on with her life, as long as it didn't affect her medical. Well, no, she's not a doctor, but she has a license through one of the medical boards here in Texas. And as long as it didn't affect her license, she was willing
Okay.
to accept whatever just to get it over with.
Well, that's the thing, which is that let's say you're arrested, right? Um, I mean, and so you have a choice. You can go to trial, and I mean, you don't really know. You're not a lawyer. I mean, the person who's arrested is probably not a lawyer, right? And so they have a choice. Like they can roll the dice. There's a 70% chance they get a not guilty finding, but there's a 30% chance they get 10 years in jail, or they can just plead out and get 18 months probation and just move on. I mean, maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, yes, putting your hands in a jury is risky.
Jeez. Well, this brings up another can of worms. Do you have a few more minutes here? Because I'm kind of
Of course, go
interested.
ahead.
Well, here's one question I really want to ask, which is, Are there different? And I'm not. And here, this is not a legal question. It's a kind of psychological or sort of psychodiagnostic question. What are the different kinds of criminals? Like, there are probably a lot of people who get jammed up in the criminal justice system who are pretty okay people, okay, but there are a lot who get caught up in the criminal justice system who are definitely not okay people. What are the If you could kind of do a little, could you categorize the different kinds of people who stand trial for crimes that you've had to deal with?
Sure. Um, you get the gang members, I'll say, especially from like the Aryan Brotherhood. I've had a few of those.
Really, they exist? I didn't.
Yes. Oh,
Wow.
yes.
Holy smokes.
They are belligerent. Um, they're hard to deal with, except I will say for the most part, I did have one, and I still communicate with him. He very 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 smart man,
Uh-huh.
and they used him to do all their cooking, if you know what I
You
mean.
mean meth cooking?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
okay, all right.
Yes. And so
Not
he
like
had
pasta. Okay.
right.
All right. Sorry, I'm dumb. Okay.
Yes, he was very very smart, very well spoken, very uh, uh, at the time that
Uh,
I met him, he wanted out and he just wanted to have a family. But
Jeez.
he was having problems and that wasn't going to happen. Then you have the guys that are just they have really nothing better to do than uh, raise hell on the weekends. They get in arguments with their girlfriends. They get in arguments with their spouses. They get drunk. They get in fights. They sometimes they'll score a little weed or some coke, and just for the weekend, and they get caught.
So these are, to use an ugly term, they're rednecks essentially of a kind.
Uh, yeah, but they're generally not rednecks,
They're not rednecks.
right? Those guys are usually the DWI guys.
Oh, okay. Okay. Were you talking about more the gang bangers? That was the.
I'm talking about the lower end of the minorities, the lower income minorities.
Okay.
Uh,
So they're
those are the ones. Yeah.
minority rednecks. All right. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, whatever.
And your cowboys, they're the ones who get drunk. Sometimes
Okay.
they'll get a little belligerent with their significant other, but not too often.
Okay.
Then you have I will tell you, the few cartel people I've
Jesus.
had to deal with, they are, and I guess they have to be. At least I've been told they have to be extremely, uh, I guess, cordial, very
I've heard.
charming,
I've heard that.
very, whatever I need to do. Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Never a harsh word, never, hey, you suck or anything like that.
I've
But
heard they're very reserved and that they're kind of in their way, sort of reserved and after a fashion, kind of educated. I mean, not formally educated, but there's a kind of composure that they have.
yes, from both, I guess what you call the upper echelon.
Uh,
We've had a couple of those, and then some of the lower, I guess, the ones that are all tattooed up, and but they're
right.
both of them always very
Interesting.
nice, very cordial, not you know, not in your face. Just what can you do to help me? How can I get out of this? What can we do?
Well, they're professionals. I mean, they're not screw ups. They're
Yeah,
alternately employed.
that would be yeah, sure.
Wow. And so now this Aryan Brotherhood guy. Now, so this guy was a criminal, but he was not a psychopath. I mean, he was a guy who was, a meth person, but he was not a psychopath. I mean,
No, 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 no.
wow. This is just a form of income for him,
It
essentially.
was. Yeah.
Okay. But now, wow. Now, I got to ask you one other thing, and this is, I guess, kind of risque here, but I've heard that a lot of people who are not, Nazis or whatever, but they end up being pushed into the Aryan Brotherhood. They don't have any ideology one way or the other, but, that in jail, they simply have to sort of associate with other whites. So they're pushed into the Aryan Brotherhood, even though they couldn't, they're not, political in any way, shape, or form. Is that true, or are the Aryan Brotherhood members,
I
goose?
can't. I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't go to
Okay.
many of the prisons.
Okay. All right. All right. Wow. And now, how many people in jail, I guess, are actual psychopaths? Just don't really have a conscience, in your estimation.
In my estimation, I can only go by just the clients that I dealt with.
Okay. So of
I would
those, yeah,
of the clients that I've dealt
yeah,
with, ones that are just nuts.
yeah. Just no conscience. Just could
Small
kill a person. Like
percentage.
not that.
Yeah,
Okay.
small
Interesting.
percentage, 1 or 2%.
Oh, that's pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, I, I've been doing criminal law now for about 10 years, and I've only had a handful that that I would not want to
If you see them
meet
walking
on a
down the
dark
street,
alley somewhere.
right, you go the other way. Okay. Wow. Now, have you? Okay, this is actually really darn interesting. Now, have you ever defended somebody on because psychopaths are actually okay. Some are violent criminals, but they tend to engage in fraud a lot, like insurance fraud, like swindlers. Those are the psychopaths, right? Often, I mean, well, those people are psychopaths. Now, there are some psychopaths who aren't doing that. Now, have you ever had occasion to defend people on kind of like these people who they ask for your money and then they go to Switzerland. They give you these fake brochures like, hey, I'll give you 20% returns on your investment, and then they leave the country. Have you ever had occasion to defend those sorts of people?
Not a genuine one. I do have one client who is being charged with that.
Okay.
But it was, and we're in the oil country, so it was an oil investment scam. Obviously, that's what they
uh,
think anyway. But he's got, we have evidence where no, we've given you these checks on your investment. The oil will, they just shut them in and they're not producing right now.
okay, so he just his he just wasn't a very good businessman, or he had
Well,
some
the
bad luck.
investment wasn't as good as the investor thought it might be.
Oh, I see. So the investor went bananas. And, okay.
Yeah, he did get paid on some of his investment. I mean, he did. It's not like he lost, like the like my client just absconded with the money. He just didn't. The investor did not get everything he invested in back
Okay. All right.
yet.
So that's okay. All right. All right. Now, what kinds of are there things about society that could be changed quite readily? What leads a person to a life of crime? Like, is there a common thread? What kind of upbringing? What kind of absent father? I've heard that. What do you know about this?
What do I know?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I would think broken family. I
Okay.
think is a big contributor, um, and I guess the kids that I've dealt with, I say kids, let's say young people. I don't do, I very rarely do juveniles. The younger folks I deal with, a lot of times they're looking, they get mixed up with the wrong people. They're looking someplace to fit in. They don't have that at home.
Oh
They
well.
don't have the acceptance at home, and so they get mixed up with the wrong folks.
Okay.
Um,
Now I'm going to change the subject a little bit abruptly. Are you
sure,
still holding strong there? I mean, this is
I am. I'm fine.
this is good. I'm actually really enjoying this, and my audience members are going to find it very interesting. This is good material, I think.
Well, I'm glad.
No, I really think it. I mean, I'm gonna praise myself here a little bit. I mean, like, I watched Geraldo a few times. Geraldo is not a bad interviewer, but he didn't get that much information out of his guests. I mean, because most of the time it was just him talking. And I was like, what the hell is this about? And okay, now you said you do oil and gas law. Is that right? Did I hear you?
I do. Yes.
What is that? If you don't mind telling me what.
I
I've never
work
heard of that.
mainly in the upstream, and that's when I say upstream. There's in oil production. There is upstream, midstream, and downstream.
Please tell me what
Upstream.
those terms mean. Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Sorry, sorry,
It's okay.
sorry, Your Honor. Apologies.
Uh, Upstream would be your exploration and production. Midstream would be transportation, refining. Downstream would be, well, refining is more in downstream, but midstream is from production to the refinery and in consumer. And then downstream is obviously all the retail and consumer end of the product cycle, I would say.
Mhm.
So I deal mainly with upstream.
Okay. And what are the issues that are likely to arise there that you? Uh,
Sure.
yeah.
Um, Now in mineral law, and
Hmm.
it's I think it's fairly common throughout the U.S. It's Texas and Oklahoma has really led the way with oil and gas laws since I guess the 1920s when Spindletop was discovered.
Hmm.
You have a piece of property. Let's call it Blackacre.
Okay.
Okay. You, as the landowner, you own the surface and you own everything down to the core, all the minerals. You have the opportunity to now Mr. Oilman comes along and says, I would like to drill because there's oil underneath your stock pond there. I want to drill on your land. Will you lease me your minerals?
Okay.
I'll give you I'll give you 25% royalty if you do that.
All right.
Okay? You do that, you sign a lease. Now, it is called an oil lease, but in Texas it's kind of a quasi contract real estate deed because now you've severed the minerals from the surface. I am the surface owner, I still own the surface, but now you have leased all my minerals. You have the superior right to come onto my land and go after your minerals.
Which raises the question, like, what exactly does the landlord still have, legally speaking? I mean,
Right. Now he has now the term is you have the right to use the surface as much as is needed for reasonable use of the surface to go after to explore and produce your minerals. So there is a huge adversarial I guess situation set up there between the surface owner and the mineral owner because the mineral owner is doing whatever he can to get to the surface, but
right.
get to the minerals, but the surface owner says, I'm still running cattle on this land. You're tearing up all my hay fields, or I can't plant my hay because you got pipes running everywhere, or you're tearing up this new road I put in to get out to my whatever.
Kind of has a point, I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But Texas courts and most of the courts around the country, side um,
The
with the
oil man.
oil.
Well, yeah, because that's where the money is. I
Mineral.
mean,
That's where the money is. That's where the surface is the subservient estate now, because the minerals are the dominant estate. So that's one issue.
okay, wow.
I do a lot of lease review, um, mainly from surface owners. They'll come in and say, "This is my lease. Is it any good?" Well, back in the 30s and 40s, and there were actually the Producers 88 came out in the 60s, I believe. It was a pad of lease. It was like a pre-printed pad of an oil lease, and landmen would just go door to door, on these counties and just start signing people up on this one lease. Well, that lease is very, very, I guess, producer favored.
Wow.
It's really skewed against the landowner. So we get a lot of lease reviews. You don't see a lot of those anymore. A lot of, I guess, custom draft leases. I have an addendum that I stick on the back of any lease that I look at and just say, I don't care what this lease says. This is what you're going to do. And I've worked with some of the oil companies in the area,
Uh-huh.
so I know what I can get away with and what they'll accept. So that's kind of tailored the addendum that way, and it helps. They pay because a lot of times, especially a good, well-run oil company like EOG,
Hmm.
some of the other ones around here, they it's so much easier to treat the surface owner well, do what he wants you to do, than to get into litigation with him later.
Right. Okay. Sure. That makes sense.
So, and then that's one issue, and that's one area, lease review. Then we get into title, because these things have been going on for 100 years, and sometimes you got to go title all the way back to sovereignty, which is
Wow.
back when the Spanish gave we took it from the Spanish from Spain. I'm from Spain. Anyway, so you got to figure out who owns what, and sometimes these tracts of land have been handed down so many generations.
What kind of
There's
judge decides this? I mean, because most of the judges I've known were not bright. I mean,
It's not. You'll get an oil and gas attorney who will do this title opinion, and there may be 100 mineral owners who are entitled to a piece of that royalty.
wow.
Um, it's all got, yeah. So that's really what's involved in the upstream portion, And then there's
Okay.
obviously litigation that goes on.
Now I'm gonna shift a little bit here, but now so okay, so let's suppose that somebody is, or you mentioned that you need a kind of special license to defend people in federal court. I didn't know that. So
No, 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 no. You just need to be admitted into the court.
admitted to a federal court. So
Yes. Uh-huh. Right. So when I got my law license here in Texas, I was admitted to every um, every court, every Texas state court,
okay,
from from the little county courts all the way up to the Texas Supreme Court or our Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the highest criminal court. If I want to practice federally,
right.
then I need to get admitted to practice to the federal district courts. And in Texas, we have a northern, eastern, southern, and western
Wow.
district.
Jeez.
Some states only have no district. There is just the district of,
The
well,
state, right.
right. So and it's a simple process. I say a simple process. I think I just recently got admitted to the Western District. I had to go take a class. I had
Okay,
to make
all
an
right.
application and then get sworn in. And that's
So
it.
if one is arrested by the FBI, then that person needs somebody who is admitted to one of these federal courts. Is that right?
If it's a federal offense, yes. And I
Now,
guess if you're arrested by the FBI, it probably is.
right. Now, have you ever defended people arrested by the FBI?
I have not.
Okay, all right. So that's sort of an interesting. Now I'm going to really shift again here because I went to UCLA and well my and all these people I knew went on to become lawyers, and frankly most of the people I know who became lawyers were not happy about it. But you seem pretty happy about being a lawyer. You seem to enjoy it. And
I
go
Yeah,
ahead.
I enjoy the law. I wish.
Yes, speak.
um, I wish it were more lucrative than I thought it was when I went to law school.
How could it not be lucrative? Don't you charge $300 an hour?
I do bill at 275, but I don't get to bill 8 hours a day,
That's quite a lot of money. I mean, okay, all right. Okay,
and
let's.
I don't see all of that 275 either. I mean, there's overhead. You know,
Oh, I see. Okay.
secretaries and paralegals do not. Well, paralegals do, but most secretaries and copiers don't generate any income.
Oh, I see. So that's 60,000 down the drain right there. Okay. Okay. All right. But wow, golly. Um,
No,
wow. It's not as lucrative as you thought. Gee whiz. Never heard that one. I mean, I have heard recently that it's very hard for people. I've heard that there's a lot of unemployment among JDs, and that's kind of a
there
recent
is.
thing.
Hmm.
Okay. So you're doing relatively well from that standpoint.
I suppose.
Okay, all right. Well, we don't have to go there now. Now, what is the? This is a sort of a silly question, but what is this? Um, what is this unemployment due to? I mean, obviously, trivially, it's due to there being more lawyers than there are lawyer jobs, but that's sort of always been the case, and lawyers seem to be doing pretty well. Uh,
Don't get me wrong. There are some
yes,
lawyers in big cities who make a buttload of money.
right.
There, and then there are the bulk of us who are in the trenches who make a fair living. I mean, by that I mean, I think last year I made six figures. I won't this
Okay.
year.
Oh, okay. I think actually that you may have answered the question because the people I knew who went into the law, they went into corporate law because I think maybe they wanted the really big bucks, and I guess that's where it is. But they were not happy with it. Is corporate law sort of boring or?
It can be. I mean, and people get into the law with all different kinds of preconceived notions.
Uh-huh.
It may not be what they want to do. Some of them absolutely will never step foot in a courtroom because they just don't want to litigate. They don't want to or they're afraid. I say afraid. They're not confident enough to be in there. I don't want to use the term afraid. I spoke with one. I was working on a local company here doing a merger. I know it was a buyout, and I spoke with an attorney who was handling the banking on the other side
Uh-huh.
in Ohio, and he was surprised that I litigate. He says, "My gosh, you litigate?" I said, "Yeah, I do. You know, I'm in a small town. I do a little bit of everything." He said, "I wouldn't even know where to stand."
Wow. Yeah, that's and yeah. I mean, I talked with one lawyer, and shifting back again, but he actually said that he preferred to represent misdemeanor people who'd been charged with misdemeanors to people who'd been charged with felonies, because he said the felony people tended not to pay, or they had trouble paying, whereas the misdemeanor people generally did pay. Is that true?
Only because most of the misdemeanors are DWIs. DWI, if your son
Uh-huh.
you're in college, and he gets a DWI because he's sowing his oats because he's
Right.
free now,
Right.
you're going to pay to keep him out of jail.
I see. Yeah. Right. Oh, I see. Yeah, I know a guy like that.
Right.
Now I'm going to shift again because I don't want to presume too much on your patience. But now you're doing narration work. Now that's a big shift. What is that about?
Um, let's see. I enjoy it. I didn't think I would, but I do.
It is
Uh,
enjoyable. It is enjoyable.
I do. I like it. I've always enjoyed micro. Well, let's say this. I was in a band in college, so I'm not uh, afraid of a microphone and recording equipment. So
Okay.
I'm pretty handy around that. Um, I don't have the voice I used to have. I'll
Okay.
put it that way. But I can still read and speak articulately. And if I even said that correctly,
That's okay. Don't worry. Relax.
articulately. Um, so I wanted to try it. And you were gracious enough to give me an offer for your book. And I had a lot of fun doing it. I actually learned a lot.
You did?
Yes,
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I learned a lot from your book. Learned about a lot about the process that I didn't know. So,
You mean the logical process, the thought process, or
no,
philosophical?
the process of narrating a book.
Oh, narrating a book. Oh, golly.
Yes,
It's a lot of work, actually. I mean, I find that's which is
uh,
why I
it
outsource it now.
it is a lot of work. I didn't when they first told me you can expect 10 hours for each 1 hour of finished
Yeah.
audio. I didn't believe that, and well, I do now.
Yeah, it gets better with time, but the post production is heinous. Now it sounds as though you're somebody who would have liked and maybe still would like to kind of have a radio show or something.
Oh, a radio show. Wow, that would be kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of that's the feeling I got about you that this is sort of what you were angling for.
Hmm. I didn't know. Wow. I don't know where you picked that up from, but that does sound kind of fun.
Well, I mean, just because look, I mean, I understand you're not look as you have this career as a lawyer, right? I mean, which is a pretty involved thing, and yet you're doing this narration work because you said you like talking into a microphone,
Oh yeah.
and you were also eager to do this. I mean, most people get very scared when I ask them to do a podcast with me, and you're pretty relaxed in this context, so it just tracked. That's all.
Oh, well, now that you bring it up, yeah, it does sound fun.
Yeah. Well, you're always welcome. I don't want to. Well, I mean, look, I don't want to waste your time, but I'm trying to figure out how to monetize this, and I think I will eventually. But always feel free to if there's something you want to discuss, if there's something you would like to opine about, you and I can definitely do another show together. That's just an open invitation, no hurry. So if you come across some really interesting legal issue, like or you want to talk about the Clayton Antitrust Act or something, or I don't know if you want to talk about that. You can do so, on the condition that I get to be there and ask you questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is pretty darn interesting. Okay, so um, and so you really have to be kind of a jack of all trades. I mean, that's because the lawyers I've known, they were doing one thing, whereas you seem to be doing quite a lot of different kinds of law.
You have to. You
Uh,
have to. In a small town, you have to. You have to be able to do, yeah, criminal law, family law, wills, trust, probate, and do I get to be as specialized as someone in one of the larger cities who only does X?
right.
No, no, I don't. If I tried to be let's say just I don't know, what I would call
Probate attorney or something.
yeah, a probate attorney or an estate boutique firm.
Right.
Um,
Market
no,
would support it. Right.
yeah, I wouldn't. I couldn't survive. I mean, I wouldn't stay here. I have to go back to. I'm from Houston, so I would have to go back to Houston.
All right. So I'm going to ask you one last question, which is, and it's not a question that you could necessarily answer, but the police, what are they like? I mean, I understand they're different kinds, but give us some broad strokes here. Are they
Uh,
mean people, good people? When are they good?
for,
What are they like?
for the most part, the law enforcement officers I deal with
Uh,
are great.
okay,
I mean, we're in the defense bar, so obviously we're on the other side, but we have a great working relationship. I have a great working relationship with the prosecution. In fact, one of the prosecutors and my wife are very good friends. So, um, I, it's just like going to work every day. You get to know and you get to become friends with the people you work with. Yes, we have a job to do, we have a role to play, but we do have to work with these folks every day. We
right.
can't hold grudges. Once we're congenial. We joke around, even with the judge. I mean, he's very cordial. But when it comes down to we're dealing with a case, well, there's no way that Madam Prosecutor is going to let me get away with anything that she shouldn't, and I'm not. I'm going to object to everything that she tries to do that she shouldn't. Once we're done, then we're back to just we're colleagues again.
Okay. All right. Now, is a practicing attorney allowed to have like a paying radio show?
Of course.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Well, no, because I'm trying to figure out. I would like to sort of monetize this thing of mine, and I'm opportunistic. I listen to all
Oh,
people, and anyone who has anything to say, I listen to them, and we'll try to convert what they have to say into greenbacks. And yeah, so that's just a question I had. So there wouldn't be like I mean, obviously, like if you disclosed, confidential information, that would be one thing, but there's no like sort of general rule that you cannot. It's not like being in
no,
the
the
CIA or something.
only general thing is if I would not be entering into any client relationship with anyone. I would, in any advice that I may or may not give
Right.
would be strictly for educational purposes only.
Right. Okay. All right. That sounds good. Well, I think that's probably enough for today. But so this has been Mark Symms. An attorney. Presumably a pretty good one, but I don't know. But seems like a good one from what I can tell, which is not a lot, but seems like a good one. Does all kinds of law. Does oil and gas law, criminal law. You name it. And consumer law, good stuff. I like the criminal laws, interesting. Anyway, and Mark Symms is also a narrator, and he is, I guess. Now, wait, is international law? That's not in the stores yet, is it? That's not. You can. Is that has that gone
No,
retail?
don't you have to approve it first?
I have to approve. Wait, have I not approved it? Have you given it to me?
I
Jesus.
have not. No, it's
Oh,
not
okay.
due
All
till
right.
the end of the month.
Okay. No, I have a lot of books out there, so I don't, I kind of lose track. But yeah. So and now, if you want Mr. Symms here to narrate your if you have a book and you'd like him to narrate it, he may well say no, but just go to ACX and and look up Mark Symms. That's SYMMS and it's MARK. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. And anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and now hold the line. You and I are going to privately exchange a few words, but that's all for now. And thanks. You've been a great crowd, people. All right, stay on the line there. Okay.
Thank you. Mhm.
All right.